My name is Ann Zaprasny, host of the Inner Game Coach Show, and I am honored to be joined by Dr. Lindsay Keenan. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
You know, Dr. Keenan, you have an amazing background. Tell us a little bit about your background and your expertise.
Okay, so my background is in athletic training. So I'm an AT by trade. I did my bachelor's degree in athletic training at Lock Haven University, and that's where I was a women's lacrosse athlete, NCAA athlete. And then from there, I got my master's degrees in athletic training and sport management from East Stroudsburg University. I worked there as a grad student as well, and I worked with an arena football team, an indoor arena football team before the whole league folded. And I worked with the football team as an athletic trainer there as well and taught in their, then went on as a faculty member and taught in their program for a while. And that's when I realized I really wanted to get into education. I knew I wanted to be an educator of athletic training, but I also was very passionate about sports psychology, athlete mental health primarily. I struggled with my mental health as a lacrosse athlete. And I knew, this was the early 2000s. I knew there was a huge need in this space for athletic trainers to be more aware of what, might be going on with an athlete's mental health. So that really propelled me and motivated me to get my doctorate in sports psychology. So I went to Temple University, taught some courses there. I worked with 3 high schools in Philadelphia, Roxborough, Saul, and Martin Luther King High School. Trainer, was a TA at Temple as well. And then once I finished my doctorate, I went on and taught at California University of Pennsylvania for a year. I was the head AT with their men's basketball team and taught in their undergrad and grad programs. And then finally was recruited over to Westchester University. And that's where I've been for the past decade. And so I've primarily worked with our NCAA women's rugby team and teach in our undergrad and grad programs. And I serve as the main lead between our sports med department, athletics, and our counseling center.
Nice. All right. So you have a role in rugby. We probably have a common friend.
Yes.
Jua Toe.
Yes.
Right. Was one of my interns and an amazing rugby player.
Yeah, Jua was a plucked off the street recruit, basically. She did not play rugby in high school, and the team recruited her because they said, you seem very athletic and motivated, and boy, was she. So by her last year in rugby, she was captain. She was leading the team. Leading the team not only as a natural leader, but also in stats, and is just such a kind, warm, but driven individual. I worked with her, obviously, with injuries throughout her time. And then, she started to become really interested in sports psych and athlete mental health. And so I kind of took her under my wing a little bit, and she ended up she was an All-American. She really was the epitome of resilience and adversity in becoming an elite rugby athlete in college, which was really cool to see.
So, Jua, if you catch this as a shout out, because we know you're working at IMG and you're a mental performance coach.
Yes.
And you have your certified mental performance consultant designation.
Yeah.
So impressive.
Yeah, really, she is.
So you've bridged the divide.
Yes.
Right? So when athletes get hurt, why is it so important that there's an understanding of the impact to their mental health?
Yeah, I think any athletic trainer you ask would tell you that so much of what we see and the athlete's initial injury all the way through the recovery and return to play has to do with their psychosocial, well-being. We can't get them to show up to rehab, let alone be successful in their recovery if they're not addressing their mental health and, their mental performance. So the athletic trainers see that. But the problem is that a lot of times they don't necessarily have the skills and know what to do with that, to recognize that. And that was really my goal, was to try to educate future athletic trainers and current practicing athletic trainers around, mental health and how to address that. Because it's really important. I struggled with it as a lacrosse athlete myself, with depression when, I was a first year college student, and I didn't know what it was because we didn't talk about mental health then in the early 2000s, and I don't blame my athletic trainers. I'm still very close with who then became my professor, Dr. Eric Lippincott, at Lock Haven. And I don't blame him for not ever asking or screening or anything like that, but it wasn't a natural part of sports medicine, and now it's expected. And I think it's been a big shift. And a lot of athletic trainers are really stepping up to the plate and saying, okay, we need to collaborate with professionals like you and with licensed mental health professionals. But a lot of them are like, what are we doing here? How do we do this? Trying to bridge that divide.
Yeah, so you are trying to bridge that divide. You have your own business. So tell us a little bit about your business and how people can learn more.
Yeah. So I was screening my athletes for several years using paper and pencil, and then went on to Google Docs and Qualtrics and all sorts of different surveying software, and realized North Central, the high school. Big school.
Good lacrosse.
Yes. I had a huge trauma moment, because I was 16. My family wanted to be closer to my grandparents and my other family in South Jersey. So my family moved after my sophomore year down the shore. And, for a 16-year-old, we had just won national championship. We moved to the shore, Long Beach Island area, Barnegat Bay.
Do they still have their house?
Well, it's not in LBI. It's on the Barnegat Bay, or it's not even on the bay. It's called Lacey Township. It's basically in between Toms River and Barnegat.
Okay.
But it's 15 minutes from, we're across from Highland Beach. Yes, because, I have 3 younger sisters. So they were like, if we wait till Lindsay graduates, the next one will be.
We would never move in high school. I commuted.
It was traumatic. It was.
You still talk to your parents?
I know, right?
I felt pretty confident that my kids would never talk to me.
Oh, my parents have a 7-page letter that I wrote that was like, I'm going to have sex and do drugs and go to jail, threatening, I would never do any of those things. I was very type A, but I was like, if you make me, it was trauma. But then I recovered very quickly when I realized whoa, I'm only an hour and 45 minutes away. And now I get to have 2 sets of friends. And I had partied Lacey Township High School. So only went there for 2 years. And my big brag is that in 2 years, I totally won over the school. And my senior superlative I won was most fun to be with my senior year. And I only met these people for 2 years. So, and they're lifelong friends. And I still have all my friends from growing up. I actually went to college and played lacrosse with my 2 best friends from North Jersey. So we got to reconnect and graduate college together. So it ended up.
So when you were in Long Valley, right, the country store?
Yeah, of course.
Tree, they turned it into a bear?
The bear? Yes. Yeah, 100%. Except, do you mean the bear? Or do you mean the eagle? The eagle, it's not there anymore.
It got old and
rotted. It got rotted. It did. It got rotted. It's gone. Oh, but Long Valley
Beautiful
is
area. Beautiful area.
It's my, it's my core memories.
We lived in Summit. When we got married, we lived in New Providence area. Mm-hmm. When we started to look, that's on a train line. We couldn't afford anything.
Yes.
So we ended up in Long Valley. Yeah. And we bought a killer house for nothing.
Yes.
And today it's
yes.
Right.
And I'm sure the taxes were as much as the house though. That was the reason why my parents were like, we got to get out. I mean, they were paying we moved in 2001. Literally my first second
week. In 2001.
Really?
We sold right after 9/11.
We were right before. So we sold in May of 2001. My second week of 10 days into school, 9/11 happened in my new school. And then one of my girlfriends, very close friends, her mom died in the second tower. And I was, and all my friends in South Jersey were like, oh, what's this? They had no idea. But all my friends in North Jersey, all their parents worked in New York. So that was traumatic too. And there were no cell phone. I didn't have a cell phone then.
You have a passion for athletic training and mental health.
Yes.
And I know you have a business that helps address the mental health piece.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit more about it and how can folks learn more about it?
Yeah. So I knew that there was a gap around mental health screening. I needed to get access to faster mental health screening because, as you know, you work with teams and it's 1 to 30 if you're lucky ratio or 1 to 100 for athletic trainer. And I was doing paper and pencil and all these other methods to do screenings, to check in with our athletes is just not feasible. And so I was really lucky to pair with our director of our counseling center, who I was mentioning is a sports psychologist. We lucked out in Division II. That was not an intentional hire. We just by accident got her. And it was the best thing that ever happened because now we have such a great relationship with her. I partnered with her and another one of our athletic directors, all three of us women, which I love pointing out.
In a very male-dominated area.
Correct.
Right.
And so we wrote a bunch of grants and said we really want to create a platform. Originally, it was for Westchester, right? For us, a solution for me, really, and our department to get mental health screening in the hands of athletic trainers. And we wrote really robust referral protocols with our counseling center, with Dr. Daltrey, set up this mental health screening process. And then eventually somebody from our university was like, this could be a really viable business. And you could put this in the hands of athletic trainers and sports psych folks across the country. And so here we are. That was, a long time ago. It took a very long time to develop the platform, but now it's a great platform to streamline mental health screening. So you can screen hundreds of athletes, entire teams in just a few seconds, and then filter down the results and identify who is at that moderate to severe or at-risk level for whatever mental health concern you are concerned about.
So I have a question, right? Sometimes athletes are not open to
Totally.
assessments, right?
Totally.
So as an athlete, how long does it take them to complete it? And how do we motivate and inspire them to do it?
Yeah, it's about transparency. So number one, we tell our athletes who's going to have access to these results. So at our institution, our protocols are the only people who are going to see these results are the athletic trainers and them. So we tell them right up front, your coaches don't see this. Nobody else will see this other than the ATs and you. And that everything that happens after the screening is totally up to them. It's in their hands. And so we make it very clear because there's a lot of fear. They're going to make me do something. They're going to, a lot of myths, right? Athletes are like, they're going to make me take medication, and that's not how it works. But a lot of it is that there's so much stigma and we don't talk about mental health enough. And so we are very clear with them. This is in your hands. The only thing that you have to do is just have a conversation with us so that we can give you those resources and then you can choose what to do. And so that takes time for buy-in, right? So it may take a few screeners or a couple of years before an athlete says, okay, yeah, I'm ready to really be honest or tell them about, my symptoms or how I've been feeling or I haven't been sleeping, whatever it is. And then as far as how long it takes, that's the best part is that on Promotion, so we're a hosting platform. So you can put any screener, any survey on there, hence our name, Promotion, patient-reported outcomes. So athletic trainers and sports psych folks can select from an entire massive database of surveys. So common ones that you've probably heard of, like the PHQ-9 for depression or the GAD-7 for anxiety, all the way to the, athletic identity measurement scale, the AIMS and burnout measurements. And so depending on what you select and want them to take, for our pre-participation exam, we have 6 screeners. We screen for depression, anxiety, insomnia, eating disorders, ADHD, and what am I missing? Alcohol use. And
so let me just clarify, all athletes at your university.
Correct. All of them take that during their preseason physicals.
Every year?
Every year, every single year, at minimum.
Okay.
And then the athletic trainers that work with them and each individual team likely will have other screeners. So for rugby, for example, I usually screen them every few weeks throughout the athletic season. And so, for a lot of teams, we do beginning, middle, end of the season and then out of season as well. So they will get more screeners as well. And it's so easy on the Promotion app that it just makes it feasible. The other thing is the athletes get automatic feedback. So they're not told what their score is or if they red flagged because they won't know what to do with that information. But instead, it will say something like, sounds like you may be struggling with some anxiety symptoms. Know that you're not alone. Your healthcare provider will be in touch. Here's some resources.
So there are resources.
Correct.
Fabulous.
And the great part about Promotion is every school can tailor those resources and those messages. So they can say, here's our counseling center phone number. Here's our local crisis center. So the best part is that they get connected to resources before there's even a conversation. One of my favorite stories that I love telling is I had been using the platform for about a year at this point, and I was down on the rugby field, had a handful of athletes who were sidelined with, longer term injuries, which is not uncommon in rugby. And I said, you know what, I'm going to do a quick depression, anxiety, and insomnia screen, just as a check-in, because down at practice, because they're just standing there watching practice anyway. So I sent them the surveys, and I shoulder tapped them and said, hey, take out your phones, open the Promotion app, and take these surveys really quick. So not surprisingly, a few minutes later, I filtered the results, and one of the athletes, red flagged, had moderate to severe depression and insomnia symptoms. So I pull her aside and we start to walk to the other side of the field, which is not uncommon for an athletic trainer to do anyway. And she looks at me and she smiles and she goes, I knew you were going to talk to me about my mental health. And I was like, how'd you know? And she's like, well, the app told me. It said my athletic trainer would be in touch. And at that moment, I was like, yes, we're here. You know what I mean? They expect us to talk to them about their mental health. We've normalized the process of this is something that we do, that is part of your healthcare, and that we can then have this conversation and pass you on to a licensed mental health professional that can, connect you with resources and go on from there. So,
and I love that, right? For an athlete to be their best, the foundation has to be solid.
Correct.
Right? And if that foundation has cracks in it, sleeping well, struggling with depression, struggling with anxiety, it is so difficult to show up and be your best. So you have to be really proud of this.
Yeah. It's been a lot.
So tell me, how many institutions are using it?
We have over 20 colleges and universities using it and a handful of high schools as well. So we're a small startup.
How old?
Just a couple of years we've been on the market. So, we're a small startup and it's really exciting to see it grow. We have gotten really amazing feedback. Our clients, the schools that are using us, are repeat. So they start using the platform and they basically don't stop using the platform because they see the value in being able to have quick access.
So if a college, let's say either administrator or a coach or a high school happens to watch this and their curiosity is piqued, how do they learn more?
They go to gopromotionhealth.com. Promotion, PROMOTION, health.com. So, or they just Google Promotion Health mental health screening.
You know what? In the past month, I interviewed Claire Kehoe, one of the founders of Morgan's Message.
Yes.
And, their direct access is student advocates.
Correct.
But I think there's probably some synergy there, right? So I'll look to see if I can create
that would be
synergy.
Great. Yeah, no, absolutely. Really empowering to see the student athletes that just take the lead on all of this. And I'm so proud and envious of them because I was like, I wish that I had that platform or voice when I was a college athlete struggling and I didn't know. I mean, the culture's so different now.
Well, what's interesting is you shared your story. I'm a little bit older. I played in the 80s. I was scholar athlete of my high school. I had a 1.5 GPA at the end of my first semester. And I was so overwhelmed. I had the basketball under control. I was underprepared. I was a chemical engineer at one of the top chemical engineering programs. And I was going to be a bio minor and I had a job. And I was just underprepared from a time management standpoint, probably from a self-care standpoint. And, I didn't have the words either.
Correct. I didn't have the words. And so it's really cool to see these athletes. And not only that, I almost feel like our young folks, younger athletes are like surpassing a lot of the professionals in the field as far as their knowledge and like advocacy around mental health. And that's inspiring. I think, for the folks that might be watching, it's like if you're uncomfortable talking about mental health or acknowledging it or working with your athletes around mental health, especially athletic trainers or coaches, it's like get inspired by the athletes because they're doing it. I've been on several panels where I've gotten to, pull in athletes who are actively on their campuses working with Morgan's Message, Hidden Opponent, these different organizations. And it's really cool to see.
Well, you know what? There's recognition, right? Where our athletes are people, right? And I love the message, right? People first. And it's part of our total wellness, right? My hope is that the coping tools, right, which we package under sports psychology, the coping tools flow down and we get them into the hands of athletes and coaches earlier.
Yes, right? Exactly.
We have a gap and we have a little bit to go, but I'm optimistic because athletes are kind of saying, this doesn't work for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also why I've advocated for, my profession in athletic training to make sure that if you're practicing clinically, that you have the protocols in place to be able to know what your next steps are as it has to do with mental health. And I forgot to mention this as well. Last fall, I went on sabbatical, which was amazing. And I developed a massive project. I work with sports folks from across the country and athletic trainers to develop an athlete mental health academy for athletics departments. And so this academy is several courses and a guidebook that I wrote that walks athletics departments through developing their mental health management protocols. So emergency action plans for mental health, referral protocols, mental health screening protocols, catastrophic incident planning, a lot of these recommendations and best practices from the NCAA, the National Athletic Trainers Association. They say, here's what you should be doing, but it doesn't tell us how to do it, how to actually develop these protocols. What are the nitty gritty, how to put it into practice? What does that look like? And so that's why we developed. So it's like 7 courses and a guidebook and templates, which is what everybody wants. Like, give me an example of a mental health emergency action plan. So we developed that, and it's been really awesome to see schools that already maybe even have 1 or 2 protocols in place, but they're like, it needs an update. It's fine tuning, or where do we start?
So if people wanted to access that,
if they Google Athlete Mental Health Academy, it'll come up, or EBP Central. So I partnered with an online CEU platform through EBP Central. If they Google Athlete Mental Health Academy, it'll pop up.
Nice. Really interesting, right? You're at the institutional level. I have an athlete mental training program that's really designed to help an athlete learn like the key mental performance skills.
Yes. Yeah.
And then custom athlete meditations written specifically to address the stress that student athletes.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, we need to talk about partnering, because I got the institution. It's like, what does the institution need to do? And you got the athlete aspect. That's really cool.
And I have a journal that has 20 exercises in it, right?
Yeah.
So we try to get athletes to reflect and then learn key mental performance skills through the
journal. That's great. I love that.
Excited when I meet someone in my space who also has the entrepreneurial bug, right?
Yeah. It's that bug. It is a bug.
Well, you know what? You're committed, right? Probably as an athlete, you're always committed to being your best. And then in your profession, you're like, how can we make this better?
Yep.
So I want to say thank you for sharing your gifts. I know you have to get back to the conference, but absolutely an honor. So thank you.
No, thank you. I appreciate you having me.
That was fabulous.
Yeah.